Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm excited to tell you about a new feature that just came out in Boldin software. Just so you know, I am a Boldin affiliate, and if you're coming to my channel for the first time, my name is Vincent. I do videos about retirement. I'm 56 years old. I've actually just started the whole retirement process. And so if you're coming here for the first time, my channel is all about retirement, setting it up from the financial perspective, different kinds of ways of setting up retirement withdrawals, ideas around how to optimize your retirement financial issues. But also, I plan on retiring and setting up my life in Southeast Asia. So part of my channel is also about Thailand and Vietnam, which is going to be coming soon. I just did a 2.5 month beta test of that plan just recently, and I came back. And now I'm just starting to set it all up. Today, I want to talk to you about the forefront of it. So if you're like me, you probably came to see how you really set up your retirement goals. And part of the way I set it up was starting with software solution. I use Boldin software, and just so you know, I am an affiliate. There's a link down below if you want the software. It helps me get more traction on it, but also I think you get a discount for that. There's also a sale going on right now. But enough of that. What I wanted to tell you about was in conjunction with the video that I did about withdrawal strategy. Now, there's a number of ways to set up retirement withdrawals. And this is the biggest part about retirement that's really the scariest. So you're moving away from working and saving to now retiring and spending. Spending is really hard because it's a total mindset shift. What you will experience is you're going to see your portfolio going down, and every month you're not, unless you have other kinds of passive income streams coming in, you're probably not going to see that value go up as you did when you were working. And that's a really hard thing to grasp, because as somebody who's always probably been working, to see numbers dwindling is a scary thought, because what goes on in your mind subconsciously is that I'm going to run out of money, and there's a possibility that I could die with nothing. Well, I want to say that that's not such a bad thing, actually. The second thing also is you won't die with nothing if you follow along with the rules of proper governance around your retirement withdrawals. And so Boldin has introduced a withdrawal strategy that was kind of in the works, and now they've released it in beta, and I wanted to walk you through that. So why don't we take a look at the software implementation of what they call their Guardrails plan. And just so you know, and maybe just to rekindle your thoughts around how it works, the Guardrail strategy is kind of it's an organizational method by which to optimize your portfolio. So the way I've seen it done and explained is really the following. You start off with a set withdrawal amount. Typically it's 4%, so if you're familiar with the 4% rule. But what happens after that is if you're spending based upon the percentage of that spend versus your portfolio, if that's increasing greater than 20%, you reduce it by 10%. If your withdrawals are less than 20%, then you increase it by 10%. So basically, you're creating a floor and a ceiling of the portfolio value and where you can spend in between those two guardrails. So that turns out to work out fairly well. Over time, though, what ends up happening is that there's been some analysis done on the Guardrail strategy. It turns out that there's a possibility that Guardrails doesn't work as well unless you incorporate risk-based Guardrails. There's a great article, and I'll put the link down below, by Michael Kitces on his website about the use of what they call risk-based Guardrails. And it's essentially just simulating the portfolio across a number of different Guardrail streams, portfolio streams, and it takes into account the greatest 80% of that to see what the level of success is, and uses that as the way to monitor, uses the average of that to make the guardrails values. So with that, let's take a look at how Guardrails works in Boldin. I've got my setup here for a fictitious guy by the name of Big Joe and his family. And Big Joe is actually a real person in real life. I met him in Thailand, and this is a dedication to him. It's actually an interesting story, which I made a video about. I'll put that maybe up later, but it's a very interesting story about Big Joe. But Big Joe has $1.5 million in net worth. The way it's set up is we've got a $250,000 dividend bucket one, as they call it. That's incorporated with cash and bucket one. Then you have a bond sleeve, which is $150,000, and then a Roth and an IRA, 401k, that equals $575,000. That makes up the entire net worth of Big Joe. Now, the thing that is the most important thing in all of your retirement planning, and this is the thing that you have to bear in mind the most, is where are you spending? You have to get a handle on that. Now, most people have their biggest expenses in their house and probably their cars. Ideally, in retirement, to get rid of all that debt would be the best scenario. I know that's not really feasible for many people, but aim to try to do that. Now, the problem there, what a lot of people may have, is they may have homes with very, very low interest rates. So paying off the home isn't as great as putting the money back into the market. There's some psychological as well as financial analysis done there. The psychological thing is like, who likes paying a bill every month? To me, it's a burden. I don't like debt personally. I feel like it's slavery. But if you have a low enough interest rate, you're really just paying yourself. So sometimes it's actually better to just keep it. But that's a debatable argument. The mathematics around that have to be proven. But in Boldin, you have to have your expenses sorted so that the system knows how to calculate the spend and also the guardrails component of it. So in Boldin, they have the detailed budgeter component of the platform. And this is where you can essentially identify, your discretionary, non-discretionary spending. So things like your home, utilities, maybe you have, automobile expenses, etc., groceries, things like that have to be stated in the system under the must-spend category. And then there's other things like travel or gifts that you would like to spend if you have excess income. That's what that does. So once you input those values in order to enable the guardrails component of it, come up to your account settings, go to the beta, and there's a toggle here that will allow you to opt in to the guardrails. If you turn that on, you'll get a hyperlink here that says Spending Guardrails. And Spending Guardrails is under the Insights drop-down. So under the Insights drop-down, you'll see down here, Beta, Spending Guardrails. And what the system is going to do is just give you an answer. And this is what's great about it. In my case, Big Joe is going to retire at 60. He's going to collect Social Security at 62. And the basic stated expenses were what was there. The system now will simulate that in its application and come up with this answer. So by the time we retire, which is in January of next year, you're going to have $1 million. You can safely spend $34.95 a month, but the planning spend, this is basically what we figured out in the detail budgeter, that it's going to be $4,800. Now here's where it gets more interesting. This tells you the parameters by which you can spend. You can spend up to $4,300 and as low as $3,100, depending on where you are in the portfolio accretion and depletion status. So if your savings is up by goes up to 1.34 million, you can increase spending up to 4,369. If it falls below 918, you have to decrease it. Now, there's some other pieces here that are really important for the guardrails. So let's go into what the help file says. If you go to the help files under new features enhancements, you'll see that Spending Guardrails Insight, where Nancy, who's one of their consultants, is explaining how guardrails work. This essentially explains away most of the assumptions of the business logic in here. What I found kind of interesting is that it's looking for a safe spending target. And there is a Boldin Spending Guardrails Insight estimates a monthly safe spending target designed to last through most retirement scenarios with about 80% confidence. So this safe spending target, 80% of the time is going to be correct. That's what it's stating. And it will simulate all of those various levels of success. Now, what I would really like to see is if you can target, if I could see all the different probabilities of that, but maybe that's to be coming out soon. But you get the idea that the safe spending target is essentially what you're allowed to spend. Now, in the case of Big Joe, we're spending way too much. And so that probably has to be tuned in some way. And so we would have to look to figure out areas where we can save. And primarily, probably the area to save will be in the mortgage. Now, this is a great implementation that has been kind of long awaited, because in the past, you'd have to use your expense category here and use the detailed budgeter and use that like to spend, have to spend. That's kind of really how they did it in the past. This gives you the pure answer by simulating it with the Monte Carlo simulator. I do want to make one notable mention. I talked about a solution called PhiCalc, and here on the screen is PhiCalc. This also does another form of the Guardrails solution, and basically the Guyton-Klinger model is essentially what we talked about. It doesn't use risk space. The Vanguard dynamic spending kind of does that a little bit more, but what is great about this solution is, the PhiCalc solution, is that you do have years by which you can simulate returns. And these are, you know, if you ever really wanted to see a bad scenario, just look at 2008. So 2008, you would have been here. You can see kind of what would have happened to your portfolio if you were in this downward cycle. So that kind of gives you another data point by which you can use. I would highly suggest you have multiple of these things running, because this gives you one perspective, one vector to think about your portfolio, whereas Boldin will give you another perspective. And the other thing about Boldin is it's more comprehensive in terms of Social Security, taxes, etc., IRMA. It gives you all of those things in the solution. So with that, thank you very much for watching. This is just an overview of the Boldin kind of plan. I hope you, get the solution. It really is useful. And please like and subscribe, like I said. And also, if you have any comments, please leave them below, because I'd love to hear what it is, and maybe there's something I can simulate for you. So with that, thanks for watching.